Hi there. Thanks for tuning in. This is the Follow Your Passion podcast. I'm your host, Erwin Wils. I'm a mindset and business strategist and founder of Millionaire Life Strategy. In this podcast, I'm interviewing my clients and other entrepreneurs that are following their passion and make a good living out of it. When you want to know more about me or what I can do for you, check out my website, millionairelifestrategy.com. But first, check out this episode of Follow Your Passion. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of the Follow Your Passion podcast. And today I have a very special guest. Please welcome Michael Priv. He is born in the Soviet Ukraine. He arrived in the USA in 1979. He graduated University of Pittsburgh to become a construction engineer in 1986. He's an insurance field adjuster by day and a writer by night. And Michael got my attention because of his spirituality. I'm an engineer myself, Master of Science in Electrical Engineering. I'm very down to earth, very left-brained, as people might know. And spirituality sounds very woolly. Yet, if you dive into it and you look into the quantum mechanics and physics, then there's more than we can describe. And I like to say that, for instance, we have our telephone, and we take it for granted that we can be called on it and we can actually internet on it and Wi-Fi exists and 4G and everything. So things are going through the air without us being able to notify it or to notice it, yet we accept that it is. So why couldn't there be other signals going through the air that we can't see? Yet there are people that have special antennas, I would say, that can tune into that and are able to receive and send messages through the field. So spirituality is much broader than what we know about it. And that's why Michael got my attention, because he has a lifelong journey of healing and understanding the physical body and how things work. And it's not just theory. He has written a book, You Are the Psychic Healers, and it trains anyone to be as a psychic healer by helping them release their psychic abilities to heal themselves and others using specific extrasensory techniques. And the historic knowledge presented in his book is not normal, although it's fully demonstrable as a truth. If these concepts were widely known, accepted, and understood, we would all be psychics capable of pure magic. With a bit of drilling, it turns out we are. And he teaches that the solutions to life problems, pain, and suffering lie in the field of the spiritual. And I'm all for that. And I'm very eager to hear your story, Michael. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Erwin. Thank you. Yeah, wonderful introduction. Yeah, I am also an engineer, and I spent all my life in construction. And this is about as down to earth as you get, other than maybe agriculture is even more down, But basically, yeah. But there is just, like you said, there is just a lot more to things. There's just a lot more. There is just a whole lot more. And actually, I had a whole slew of questions in the beginning when I was young, and then as I, progressed into adulthood and so forth, I had a whole bunch of questions, about God and existence and meaning of life and how it's all constructed and why it doesn't fall apart, and what's the deal with all the previous civilizations that are all gone. Like, why are they all gone? Why can't we have a civilization which lasts for more than like a few hundred years? This sort of thing, and and human suffering. And obviously, it was obvious to me that some people are seeking out the way to suffer, and then they just carry it as a cross with them their whole life, and somehow get something out of it. Somehow they feel good about it, about suffering. I don't know, So the nature of suffering, the nature of conflicts and wars, and the nature of peace, and tranquility and so forth, and of course immortality, and of course the human body. I grew up in the Soviet Union, and everything was like bad, basically on a low level. The standards were low in everything, including medical sciences, and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But even there, I noticed that medicals can't heal most of the illnesses that they're confronted with. They can't even say where they come from. Like, for example, like I swear to God, when I was about 12, I started thinking, okay, so common cold comes from germs. So how come if one person got these germs and got a cold, then the person next to him probably also got the same germs, but didn't get the cold. But
Yeah.
then next time you look at them, and now they're all switched around. And now that one is sick and this one is not. And next time, none of them are sick. And next time, there's a huge epidemic. And in that huge epidemic, maybe 1 out of 4 is sick. And that's considered a huge epidemic. What about the other 3? Didn't they hear about the epidemic? They missed the memo,
Yeah.
So germs seem like more like a coincidence. Like, it's not really a coincidence, but basically it's something that goes together. Like, for example, we can say that it's always sunny when I play golf, but it doesn't mean that it's not sunny when I don't play golf, right? Like, there are basically many ways of looking at it, and just to say, okay, illnesses come from germs, that's wrong. That's not true. By sterilizing yourself and your loved ones and boiling everything and stuff like that and all that, it's a sure way to die. It's not a good way to survive at all. So
Yeah.
anyway, so I started working on answering these questions. I had a life-changing situation that happened to me in 1982, in the winter of 82, 83, when basically I went through a very, very difficult winter in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I almost froze and almost starved and so forth, and many people helped me. And and it was just an eye-opening, life-changing experience in many ways. Like, in itself would be an interesting subject. But basically, it kind of culminated in this guy in New York City who really helped me a lot and saved me from probably biggest danger I've ever been to, and so forth. And when I tried to get his address and phone number and so forth to send him a check to repay him later when I could,
Mm-hmm.
he refused. And he said, I don't want your money. He said, that's not why I'm helping you. He said, I'm helping you right now because I can. He says, and all I want from you is to help somebody in the future, if you can. That's it. That totally blew my mind,
Yeah.
because, I came from the Soviet Union. Like, being trusting was not one of my strong qualities, which was probably why I got into so much trouble to begin with. But in any case, I was young. I was 22, 23, but anyway, yeah. So, so I started looking for ways to help people, and I very quickly discovered that there are no actually like really good ways to help anybody other than to make them able. You can feed somebody and they're hungry, like in a couple hours again. You can do more sometimes by opening and holding the door for someone. That's something they remember, or paying for somebody for a car behind you at the toll, at the bridge, or whatever, and it's just a couple bucks, but it's just something that they will remember for years, that somebody
Yeah.
did it for them, so maybe that, but really all of it is superficial, and all of it is congratulatory, like, I
Yeah.
can congratulate myself. I am so good. I helped somebody, wow, I bought this homeless person a hamburger. Wow, this sort of thing. So none of it is really pivotal in any way for anybody, but it's nice, it's nice, but it's just not what it's supposed to be. So, and then I met this guy. He was a Buddhist monk from Thailand. His name was Ang Ma. So Ang Ma, he was a Buddhist monk. So he was the wisest guy I've ever met up to that point. And he kind of opened my eyes to the fact that there is past trauma. It can be handled. there are more abilities, there are extrasensory abilities, there are all kinds of things that we don't see or don't understand and discard and discount and so forth, that can really, really improve human abilities and make them able. Let's say, for example, somebody is not able, to feed themselves, and you can make them able, and they can feed themselves. Not only they can feed themselves, they can have also a family, they can have a relationship, they can have a fulfilling life and give somebody also a fulfilling life, and everybody's going to be happy. And all it is hanging on is abilities. It's more popular in our culture to say it's hanging on the opportunities given to them by the cruel and heartless society. In actual fact, it's only hanging on their own personal abilities, and everything else is a dead end. You can jump up and down all you want about society giving more opportunities and stuff like that, but if society doesn't want to pay any attention, then that's where it ends.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, while you're jumping up and down, some people are happy and other people are not. You see? So the more promising way was to improve people's ability and their ability to be happy, and then they can be happy whether or not they're getting that opportunity or not. Opportunities are not that easy to pin. Let's say, for example, a class of engineers that just graduated, of 30 new engineers, let's say electrical engineers, they have um, no, I'm sorry, let's say 600, new engineers graduated, and they have 30 job openings. So that's the opportunity. You can calculate it very, very easily. So the opportunities are basically really low for
Yeah.
each one of them to join. If you look at it this way, then you are not looking at it correctly. Because if you look correctly, then you only need one opportunity and you have 30. You only need one opportunity and you have 30. More than that, maybe you can make the 31st opportunity for yourself and don't even worry about the whole thing. Maybe if you don't have a resume, maybe you don't even need a resume to create that 31st opportunity. Everything depends on your abilities.
Yeah.
So, and we're all somewhere on that scale, or wherever we are, and some are pretty high, some are pretty low, and in different areas we are at different levels and so forth. And somebody very developed in one area can be a complete, uh, not like all that high in a different area and so forth, and
Yeah.
many different areas, so on. Okay, so I started looking into that. I looked into various basically things and various religions. So I kind of assumed from early on that wisdom is somewhere there, and it must be in in religions, maybe old religions, maybe current modern religions, and so forth. Um, you know, but it's not in a lot of blah blah and a lot of talking and all the fables and fairy tales and folklore that goes with the religions, with the narrative. But in there is somehow methods. There are some methods there. For example, old shamans,
Mm-hmm.
or old medicine people and so forth. Oh, of course, they're all idiots and so on. But in comparison to us, we are so smart. We have medicine, we have X-ray machines and all that, right? Well, in actual fact, it's not true. It's just not. That doesn't work that way, because you go somewhere like to Siberia where you have old people, or probably somewhere you have old cultures there, old tribes.
Yeah.
Those tribes are basically the same as American Indians here. So you can even go to American Indians in the US, or some other ancient people like that, and things actually work. I remember one such old lady from my childhood who cured people in front of me, in front of my eyes. In very mysterious ways to me and so forth. Now I understand it better. But I can tell you right now, after some 36 years of research and application, after at least 1,000 patients or more, after complete miracles and so forth. I cannot do what that old lady did to begin with. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm trying, maybe someday, you know, I mean, I'm only 63 now, maybe 40, 50 more years, and I can be almost as good as she is. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And she didn't research for 36 years. So there is like something to learn, as opposed to something to dismiss and say they're all backward idiots. You know, it's just not so. You know. Okay, so I started my research. So it was all kind of nebulous to me in the beginning, 36 years ago, in '87 when I started after I met the monk. Um, but generally it had to like help people, and in order to help people it had to be an application. It has to be something that could be applied. It had to be something practical.
Yeah.
Not more talking, not more discussion, not sharing quotes, who said what, which authority said what about what, you know. And I started kind of moving along the path of increasing abilities, and I realized a few things. That there are, well, at the time I was a little naive, but I only actually found a couple of really major barriers for anybody to achieve extrasensory abilities, such as, for example, remote view uh, viewing or remote
Hmm.
view healing. And one of those was certainty. People are just dead uncertain about anything.
Oh yeah.
You know, that's very unfortunate. You know, so
Is
so
it?
I started. Uh,
I think if about this uncertainty that when you're talking about remote healing or remote watching or whatever, that if you don't truly believe in it, you start doubting your mind because you think it's your imaginary mind playing tricks on
yeah,
you.
yeah. Well, if you don't believe in it, you know, if somebody has scientific approach in mind, you know, they're not believing. It's like saying the physicist finds this, you know, by studying gases, finds this interesting phenomena, but he doesn't believe in such phenomena. You know, it's,
Yeah.
you know, then he is not a scientist.
And then it's
He has
biased
to,
research.
yeah, he has to go where his evidence leads him. With
Yeah.
his own agenda, you know, it's not scientific approach. So believe in it, believe in remote view, possibilities of remote view, and I never believed in it, you know, but I did follow through. I doggedly followed through whatever I found, you know.
Yeah.
But the thing is, okay, so if I'm sitting right here, and for example, well, let's not take you, but let's say somebody else over there in Netherlands right now, and I can examine, for example, his pancreas and liver sitting here right now, you know, then let's say I see this pancreas, right? I see this pancreas. Here it is. There's a tail. There's a head. It looks like a little animal. You know, it's supposed to be yellow. Most people, unfortunately, it's more brown and so forth. You know, and there are, you know, whatever. So basically, so here it is. And but now, if I'm not certain, like you said, basically, if I'm not certain that what I'm seeing is not what I'm imagining, that how am I going to progress? I'm always going to be stuck at this point,
Yeah.
saying,
Yeah.
I'm just making it up. I'm not saying it's impossible, but like it's not. Yeah, I couldn't possibly do that. You know,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah. Yeah.
somebody else can do that. So certainty. So there are many reasons for uncertainty, you know, that can be, you know, can be somehow extrapolated from psychology, from different kind of things like that. But I found one that actually really handles the situation, and that is making anybody your authority on learning. Like, in other words, learning from any teacher is bad. Of course, um, you know, you don't, it's like this. Let's see, what did Jesus say about this? Well, you know, first of all, we don't know what he said about anything, for one thing. And second, because, you know, it came from King James and a few monks that he hired to work with him who didn't wash for months. I mean, I don't know. Like, I have my doubts, you know, if they were even qualified and if they didn't have their own agenda. But let's say, okay, but okay, so let's say I'm curious. What did Jesus say? Like, what did Jesus say about like love thy neighbor regardless if thy neighbor is a gay or an immigrant or a black or Asian or whatever? What did he say about that? Did he say anything about that? Maybe I'm curious, but it doesn't mean that whatever I find is going to now shape my life and now I'm going to follow Jesus to the end, or any other teacher.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be Jesus. Let's say, for example, uh, my plumber says, okay, so you stand here and you do this next time. Okay. I say, okay, but I try and I use my own mind and I keep my own counsel whether or not that's how I want to do it. If I find it good, I do it. It's fine.
Yeah.
But it's not because he said so. Thank you. Thank him that he did. It's all very good. But nobody is going to be like, the end all kind of source for me, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, okay, of course, in plumbing or mathematics, or well, even mathematics, it's like really difficult to find where it actually works. But in some places, maybe authoritative teaching and learning works better, and so forth. But like definitely in the matter of the spirit, you can just forget it. There are no teachers. There are no teachers. It's just not. Everybody has their own path, and they arrive. First of all, they have their own purpose for doing this. For example, one of my favorites. I consider several people my teachers. It's just that I don't take everything they say as a written in granite rule for life for me. But I'm very interested in what they're saying. I
Oh,
respect them
yeah.
greatly.
I
Yeah,
totally get it. I have the same with pictures. I love. You have a lot of movies that look at the mankind and the world from a certain viewpoint, and I
sure.
love that. Right? It's not my truth. It's their view, but
Yeah,
this view it enlightens my own mind and makes me curious about what if, right?
yeah,
If you look
yeah,
at The Matrix, for instance, right? It was a great
yeah,
movie, but you also have the one where they're talking about parallel worlds,
yeah,
where you exist in like 150 parallel worlds.
yeah,
Your energy is divided over all those
yeah,
150 personalities, and if
yeah,
one dies, that energy becomes spent over the other
yeah,
149.
yeah.
And I love those kinds of concepts, right? It's not, but it's makes the world interesting, and
Yeah,
it's not
yeah,
the truth, but it's expanding your own mind.
exactly, exactly. So you don't become a religious maniac about having 150 duplicates in some other universes just because you saw that movie, right? But
Yeah,
you saw it and you appreciated it. Great, but but it wasn't like a top authority that now shaped your complete viewpoint and now you finally but
yeah,
so the same thing in spiritual. You follow your own path. If you don't, and if you make people your teachers, then you actually lose certainty. Then you will never get anywhere basically on the path of creating these extrasensory abilities and so forth. Just because you have to have ironclad certainty. It's not like somebody else. Let's say I really like Wayne Dyer, but it's not like Wayne Dyer is going to help me with that pancreas, you know, or that he ever actually healed any pancreas. That wasn't his, you know. Wayne Dyer was more into Rumi and poetry of it all and so forth. He was not into healing people, but I am. So we look at it from different viewpoint from the beginning, you know.
yeah.
So that was one barrier that I found, which is really difficult to cross for most people, because if you kind of stop being able to relate to people very well because they constantly talk about who said what and different quotes and authorities and videos on YouTube about this or that and who said what, stuff like that. But you kind of don't, you know like it is what it is, and what it is what you think it is and not anybody else,
Yeah.
even though you're willing to watch the videos and stuff like that. So there are things in your personal life that kind of start shifting away from people and away from barbecues and backyard parties, and beer with buddies, you kind of notice that you get invited less and less and stuff like that. So, that's also something that you kind of need to decide what's more important. And if you continue on this path long enough, you realize that both are important. Actually, it's not one or the other, it's both. Because originally I thought what's more important is the truth. Well, the truth is important, but social life is also very important.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
both are important. So the trick is to make both work. It's not any kind of make wrong and screw you idiot, and stuff like that. They're all wrong, So without all this, basically, just both are right. So anyway, so that was one that I found was this certainty and reliance, or even craving for authoritative opinion. Craving, people kind of don't trust themselves so much that, it's like. Is the sky blue? Well, I don't know. Let me look what blah blah says on the YouTube about it. It's kind of blue, but I
Yeah,
don't know. Maybe it's a zoo. Maybe it's not blue. Maybe it's light blue. Maybe it's not totally blue. Like.
yeah.
But anyway, so that's one. Second is fear. So when I started examining fear, actually, it's a really interesting subject. I even wrote a book about it, which is called Fear, which I didn't finish yet, that I wanted to publish, but I kind of got busy with other things. But basically, I have it almost ready. So fear is a fascinating subject. So, which of course leads to the actual creation. So the word is created based on the concept of unconditional love. There is no preference to wolf or to the deer or to the snake or to the mouse. There is no preference at all. They're all equally loved, and they're all in there. And you know um so I don't know if I need to get into what I discovered in terms of creation and God and stuff like that. I'm not totally sure, but it's important. Okay, it's important to realize one thing, that fear is, so there is only one actual emotion that I found, which is unconditional love. That's it.
Hmm. Yeah,
But if you start adding fear to it, it starts slowly going down. The more fear you add, it's slowly going down. So over here is exhilaration, happiness, enthusiasm. Well, that's not really unconditional love anymore. That it has a little bit of fear in it, and even though it's very high, and then it goes down, and at some point we recognize it as fear, and it goes deeper and deeper. And there is no other emotions. There's just two. There is basically unconditional love and fear. The more fear you add, the less unconditional love you have. And after a certain threshold, this fear, if it keeps going down, it's called insanity. And it goes deeper and deeper into insanity, and it's more and more fear and no unconditional love. So
yeah,
okay, so I found that it really works that way, because using certain forms of meditation that either reduce fear. There are forms of meditation that are thousands of years old that completely, totally eliminate all fear. So, like, you can't get scared if you try. It's like a completely foreign emotion to So, which doesn't mean that you don't recognize danger. It's just that you don't get scared by it.
yeah, yeah.
But anyway, so uh, let's see. So
But would you also say that unconditional love is like fully trusting the process?
what process?
Well, that some say that you're the master of your own life. Others say, well, things are happening for a reason. Everything is already there, right? And you just you're an you exist and you are, and everything's I won't say pre-planned, but it's when you're at this level of unconditional love, then you've reached, I would almost say, like the end state, right?
Well, I wouldn't say it's pre-planned. There is nobody there to plan anything. there is a phenomenon which I call the persona. So it is pre-planned, but it's pre-planned by you. And you have these powers, the powers that I'm like scratching the surface of and stuff like that, we all have. So whether you realize it or not, they're still there. So you're just conditioned, for example, not to see it, not to believe it, not to this, not to that, and be a victim, and which we are never victims, by the way. So so people may not realize it, but the abilities are still there. And so with these abilities, we create our own persona. I called it persona. It's not a scientific term. I don't know how else to call it. So basically, it comes from person, which is in Greek was a mask that was used in theatrical performance in ancient Greece. So it was a mask, right? So you create this persona. It's not created for you. No, it's this personality thing. People are talking. He's such person. He is such person. His personality is blah blah. All that they're saying is that he created this persona this way. So this persona that was created is not all created voluntarily by a person. Some of it is imposed through a mechanism of overwhelm. So a person was overwhelmed by other people, and somehow artificially created this synthetic persona to somehow resemble them or counter them, or somehow having to do something to do with them, but somehow, so now it's his persona. So that persona has a certain plot and a story line and a dramatical somehow ending and so forth, and the person is carrying through that with that storyline for that persona that he created for himself. Nobody did it to him, really, to the bitter end. If that persona has to die, then the person will die. If it has to suffer horribly, if that person has to be like horribly sick with the worst diseases ever for like 60 years, that's what's gonna happen, or blind, spend this lifetime blind or whatever. It's really difficult to get really to the bottom of this persona, but I made big strides because that persona holds the key to resolving habits that are persistent habits. Let's say, so this guy always finds himself blondes, and then drives them, makes them really unhappy, and he is totally unhappy, and he already had 3 blondes for wives, and it was a disaster every single time. And now him being a good person, so now he's really attracted to this blonde, but now he doesn't even want to come near her because he knows he's going to hurt her and hurt himself, and that's all he is capable of, is just hurting this woman. So in some way, so okay, so it's a persistent, what I call a persistent habit, and it's the resolution of it is hidden into this persona. So it's important to work with the persona, even though it's very difficult. But it is important, and I definitely got some really good results and made some headway into working with persona. So this persona basically has a certain, like what you said about the something is predetermined. This is what predetermination is. This is what it is. There is no like old bearded guy sitting somewhere, like, I don't know, in front of a huge computer, I guess, and going, "Oh, Joe Smith, okay, let's do tick tick tick," like this movie, But anyway, so it's predetermined, but it's possible to undetermine it and make a different determination also. So, so my whole understanding was, that's why I wrote this book, which is Your Psychic, the Healer's Handbook, which is right here. It's a handbook. I thought that with a little bit of understanding and with a lot of drilling, anybody can be a remote view healer. So that didn't go well, and it wasn't true at all, and it actually didn't work. I released this book in 2017, And in 6 years, nobody achieved anywhere near what I achieved, even though I did seminars and worked with people one-on-one and stuff like that. So I realized that there was a third factor which I didn't know, in addition to fear and certainty, or uncertainty, fear and uncertainty. There was one more factor, and it was it had to do more with this persona thing. Something else basically had to be done. So I started the whole new research into persona since then, but I didn't try to apply it, and I didn't write about it, and didn't do seminars about it.
Yeah. And I can kind of understand, why it didn't work, so to speak, because I know you as a person, right? And I know that you've written everything down in the book. It's your true handbook, right? And if people follow up on the handbook and follow your instructions, then they will be able to develop their own psychic abilities, right? But it's all about, I think it's also, it's down to determination and perseverance, right? And it's like, maybe it's also about people wanting fast results.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Right?
People,
they think, okay, now I got a tool, and when I do this, and I applied like 20 times, it doesn't work. 50 times, it doesn't work. 100 times, oh, it still doesn't work. It's a scam. Not realizing maybe you have to repeat it 1,000 times before you start noticing the differences, right?
Yeah.
And that's hard for a lot of people, to stay consistent, to persevere, and to stay determined, to develop yourself.
Yeah, it's exactly true. I just wanted to, it's so true. I actually have, I'm just looking at random, looking for the end of any chapter. Okay, so here's the end of the chapter. And it says, before this meditation, before continuing, come back to it frequently. So, but somebody reading it, they just keep reading. But that's also kind of part of it. Just wanting everything fast. Actually, some of them say, "Do not move any further until you totally master this drill." But they just do it once, or don't even do it at all, and keep going. But even under my supervision and so forth, when they did do it, they still didn't get anywhere. But they did get a lot of gain for themselves as beings. And some of them were able to heal themselves or cure themselves from different ailments. I remember a particular case with a bad liver, that she was able to handle it herself. That was excellent. So there was some movement.
Yeah.
But,
I remember that back in 2016, I started a 2 years program, which became 2.5 years program of becoming a certified professional hypnotherapist. And one of the parts that my mentor was very keen on was mind training, right? He said, if you want to become physical strong, right, you go to the gym on a daily basis. And if you consider your mind to be a muscle as well, you have to train it also on a daily basis. So he actually created 730 audio files of about 22 minutes. So for 2 years long, every day there was a new audio file. And he said, you have to have a purpose to persevere, right? And I had a purpose to become the world's best hypnotherapist, right? And well, it's a very ambitious goal, right? Will I ever be? I'm not saying no, maybe. I don't know. Will I be able to prove it? I don't know, because when I start shouting off the roof that I'm the best hypnotherapist of the world, probably somewhere on the road, somebody will stand up and say, what are you talking about? You're just 10 years in the business, right? Come back when you got some real experience, right? But that's not my point. Having this big, ambitious goal keeps me learning every day, right? I look at other people that are further down the road than I am, and I admire them, and I look what what they've achieved, and they motivate me as well. I learn from you. I learn from my children, from my wife. I learn from my clients. I learn from everybody, right? But having this goal, I'm the eternal student, so I keep on learning and expanding my knowledge, and that's how you eventually persevere and achieve what you want to achieve.
Yes. Well, that's true. In this case, it's also true, but in this case, it's even more in even more depends on your attitude, and it's like it's less obvious. It's deeper, because you're talking
Yeah.
about matters that like are other people consider crazy, like for example reincarnation, or we are all one. How do you think remote view healing is even possible? Like nobody in their right mind would think that I'm here hitting at I sitting at my desk, uh, going somewhere in New Zealand, and as my mind, find the address. Okay, so Maple Street, number 52, apartment 3, like this, in a disembodied state, and find this person. Maybe check his documents because I don't even know if it's the right person, and stuff like that. And then somehow I see his pancreatic cancer or something like that. That's not how it works at all.
No.
The way it works is because we're all one. I don't have to go anywhere. We're all right here. And for me, and all I have to do is I have to get oriented, which takes me less than a second normally. I can get oriented to any person if I get something to get myself oriented by, but maybe a photo or at least an email or something, or at least knowing somebody who knows that person who is thinking about him. I'll pick him up immediately, because spiritually he is right here. We're all one. So this concept, all one, is very old, but it's extremely contentious. No, like most people not just don't understand it, but don't even want to hear it, or don't even like absolutely nothing to do with it.
Yeah, but if you look into it, there's already been so much research on how twins know each other thoughts, and they feel the same. If one twin hurts itself, the other person feels it as well, even that when they're miles apart. And so there's a lot of evidence, but you have to be willing to see it.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Most people are not willing. It just goes outside of their high school mathematics or physics or whatever, and they don't understand it. They don't want to hear about it. They also don't think that it has anything to do with their future or their happiness or anything like that. In actual fact, that's wrong. There's a lot to it and stuff like that. And yeah, we are all one. So how, if you want, I can say a few words how we are all one, because it's such a misunderstood concept.
No, sure, please do.
So if it was misunderstood before, after I finish, I guarantee it will be misunderstood a lot worse, but a lot deeper, misunderstood a lot deeper. So how it works is this, and I tried this explanation several times and it never worked, but basically it's true. So if we and that's the only thing that makes remote view healing possible. And there are remote view healers, and I personally know several, and at least one of them can run circles around me. He's so much better than me because he actually had a medical education, which I never did. But anyway, so it is real. I can demonstrate it at any time. But the only way it's possible is because we're all one. We're all right here. Everything works on consideration. In other words, if I consider you being here, then you're here for me, as a spirit, but like how much space we all occupy all together as one is a whole different point, which is actually more or less irrelevant, but we're all together. So okay, so how it works is this. Imagine this guy by the name Bob, and Bob is God. And I'm not going to get into special circumstances of why he was able to make his creation stick. Actually, there's a lot about it in Buddhism with the concept of void. which is void of endless possibilities and so
Yeah, yeah.
forth. There is a lot to it. There is a lot about it already and so forth, and it's all available. There are no secrets about it. But let's say, for example, this guy, Bob, he had the ability to make things stick. So he creates a story in his mind. So in his mind, there is a space in his mind which exists only in his mind. So, okay, so there is a space in the mind. So the mind, well, first of all, mind is not located in the head or in the brain. Mind actually is a different construct which is located around the brain. And by the way, anybody can feel it. All you have to do is maybe rub your hands together like this or not, and then just come slowly to a person from the distance of maybe 2 meters away, let's say, to a person's head, and closer, 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 closer. And at some point, you will feel slight tingling and slight resistance. You will actually feel it.
Yeah. I know.
So that's mind. So mind is an electronic construct around the person's head that has its own structure and so forth. But basically, it's a flow of energy, and to okay. So, but basically, in his mind, so in that person's mind, in Bob's mind, right, there is a space. So that space is something that he created himself. Like, for example, here's Bob and here's Bob's cat. So the distance between them is 3 meters. So that 3 meters doesn't exist. But in his mind, there is this space between them. And so that's his cat, 3 meters away. And that over there is some kind of like different town 40 miles away, and it's all still in his mind. So there is as much space as he wants. Basically, it's all up to him. He creates the space. He can create the universe with unimaginable distances, completely unbelievable distances. He doesn't even have to do that. He can create the universe which occupies very little space, but which is then explodes and expanding. And all he does is he basically presupposes from the beginning that it has as much room to expand as it needs. And it will never run out of room. And that's it. And it keeps expanding without his participation. But anyway, but maybe that's not even what he created. What he created, Bob, let's say, let's take an example. He created a story of Jack and Jill going up the hill to fetch a bucket of water. That's the story he created. So here is Jack and here is Jill, and they're walking up the hill together, and they're getting this pail of water, and he invented all this. So while he was doing that, he also, there is a sky. They obviously don't fly away, so somehow there is a spherical planet rotating in there. There is some kind of gravitational force that's holding them down because they can walk and they don't fly away. And they get there is grass and trees, so there is not now photosynthesis also exists now. So somehow basically blanks are being filled in, but there are only 2 people in that story that he created. But then maybe he expanded it and there are more people and so forth. Okay, so he created this story. Maybe it's a short story, let's say. And that short story is now created, and let's say it came to life. So the important point here, there are many important points here. But one important point that I would like to mention is that Jack is Bob. And Jill is also Bob.
Yeah.
And let's say they have 50 more people in that story, and they're all Bob, because there is nobody else sitting in Bob's head making up stories. So it's all Bob. So in the final count, if in that story Jack decided to be a healer, and he would want to develop this remote view healing abilities, he would realize that actually they're all the same person. And he can get oriented toward, let's say, Jill, and handle her headache in an instant.
Yeah.
if he knew how, and if he had some kind of techniques under his belt that you know how it works. So anyway, so that's what being all one means, that there is just simply nobody else.
It's yeah, and I totally get the story because are you familiar with Dr. Joe Vitale?
No.
He has written a book, Zero Limits. It's all about Ho'oponopono. And it was also about a certain man that healed like a very dangerous jail department, and healing all the prisoners and making them good people by only looking at their reports.
Mm-hmm.
What was basically the story, because he said as soon as he read the report, that certain prisoner became part of his reality, of his life. And Ho'oponopono means something like, I forgive you, I thank you for being part of my life, I forgive you, and I love you, something like that, right?
Yeah.
And by forgiving himself, he healed the prisoners.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that totally
Yes.
fits this concept that you just
Yeah.
explained, right? Because it's the moment you are a part of my reality right now, as I'm a part of your reality,
Right.
right? And
Yes.
that's yeah. So I get what you're saying, and it's very interesting.
Yes. So
And
this is
it's what you say. It's mind blowing if people aren't open to receive that kind of information.
yes. Yeah. Yeah. And also, it's so okay. So let me tell you, it's actually much more difficult to constantly working on creating these boundaries, and to basically you have to somehow protect your persona from the infringement of everybody else, because you're all one. But you don't want to be all one. You want to be different. You want to be
Yeah,
different. Even if you want to be a crippled, prisoner who spends his life in prison, but still different. And so you want to be different. So it takes a lot more energy and a lot more like effort to separate yourself than to just let it flow. Like the biggest trick in the world is just have no resistance. It's like it's such a huge trick. It's so difficult for people. Like I try to heal people with this technique. So wouldn't be physical. This is more on a psychological scale. But I get to call I get patients who need all kinds of things, not necessarily livers and arthritises. Like I get very interesting cases. That I don't know if you have time to talk about it, but basically the situation is this. I know exactly how to heal that. Just relax and let this flow. Oh, this anger you feel, just relax and let it flow into your core and get it ingested and digested by your being. Why? Because it's yours.
yeah,
You feel anger, it's your anger. Oh, your wife makes you angry. Well, it's not your wife's anger that you're feeling. You're feeling your anger. It's a part of you. Stop mutilating yourself. Be yourself, let
yeah,
it in, let it flow.
yeah.
And
It reminds me of a friend of mine that's also. I know it's very a touchy subject, so to speak, right? And he mentioned cancer. That
yeah,
and I think it might be valid for a lot of diseases we have, that they're messengers, right? And he says, don't kill the messenger. Look what the message is, and take care of that.
well, this is all very true. But if you look at what the message is really deeply, then you will kill the messenger, and that's actually very good.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
That
Yeah,
will
yeah,
be really good news. But
yeah,
otherwise, you may not be able to kill that messenger unless you really look at the message. That's
yeah,
very true. So that kind of brings us to the point that unfortunately, anything that important as to cause cancer, nothing like that happened in this lifetime. So, psychology, psychiatry, and so forth, if they insist on working with mother, father, like keep digging through childhood and whatever else, this lifetime is just not gonna. It just doesn't. It's we have actually like trillions and trillions and trillions of years, let's say, behind us. Year is a is specific to Earth, but basically a huge chunk of time behind us. Just incredible depths, immense depths of time behind us, and many things happen during that time and so forth. And some of those traumas are extremely traumatic and so forth, and it keeps playing out now. But it doesn't have to be that traumatic. Like in this book, I don't know if you have time, like for one little case study. Very short.
Very little. I know we can talk about this subject for hours, but
Yeah,
I have to think about the audience as well, Michael.
yeah, very short. So this girl, she had this lady, 40-year-old lady, she had cancer, and she was dying, and there was nothing anybody can do, and so forth, and it was all very sad. And but going into her mind, basically what we uncovered is that, so basically you can have, I can have access to this recording of all these past lives without actually asking a person. I tried it in many different ways, and I noticed that if I ask a person, then I'll never get where I want to go, or any or coherent or intelligent information, and it's all going to be a lot of blah and meh. And I never have time and stuff, so I kind of short-circuited it. With their permission, I actually go into their mind myself, find the point of now. It's a moving target kind of, but it is a point of now, and start unwinding back to the incident or moment responsible for this cancer. So the moment, so it sometimes doesn't work, but more often than not, it works.
Mm-hmm.
So I find that moment. Now, whether or not it heals the cancer is a different story. It always gives good results. But the problem is that in this incredible depth of time, there are other incidents also.
Yeah.
So you cannot possibly find them all. So which got me into a whole new different line of research. But you can definitely make a huge improvement by this. So by unwinding this back, I find this incident. So this lady was a peasant somewhere in Caucasus Mountains. I don't know when, maybe 1,000 years ago, maybe 1,500 years ago. That was actually this lifetime. So actually, I'm contradicting myself. But in this case, yeah, that's what it was. But it probably had roots deeper,
Yeah.
But this was one incident that I found. But anyway, so it was a hill covered with trees, kind of like a forested hill.
Mm-hmm.
And so this peasant was basically chopping down these trees and then pulling out the stumps to make a field. So it was hard work, and he was just working there, basically clearing for a field.
Yeah.
And suddenly he sees this family running toward him from up above the hill, over the hill, about 12 people. Husband and wife, a whole bunch of children of different ages. Everybody is completely terrified, torn clothes, some bloody, and they're all running this hill, and they're completely terrified, and they ran past him down the hill. Then the soldiers appear with swords and so forth, and very mean-looking soldiers. So the soldiers come to him, and the guy in charge, the officer or whatever, basically he asked them, where did they go? And he was terrified of these soldiers, and he pointed where they went. And the soldiers went after them on horses, so they moved faster,
Yeah.
And pretty soon he heard the screams and of this murder family being murdered by the soldiers.
Yeah.
And from that point on, every lifetime that person, that peasant, somehow managed to kill himself, like felt guilt always.
Yeah. I can imagine that.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So in this lifetime it was cancer, but probably it was cancer often. But anyway, so what I had to do is go back there into that incident, take control. Now it's subjective, just in the memory. Take control of that peasant's hand, and instead of pointing down the hill, point up the hill. And that immediately created huge results on the person right now. Now 1,500 years later, that's how it works.
Yeah, very interesting, very interesting. And I can kind of understand how that works, Michael. So thank you for sharing that with me and with the audience as well.
Sure, thank you.
If there's any tip or piece of wisdom you would like to share with the audience, Michael, what would it be?
Well, at this point, the greatest advice I could give is relax. Stop resisting, stop rejecting, stop fighting, Like, let's say somebody is saying something you don't like. If you just relax your core and just let it flow in, through, whatever you want to call it, but basically just let it flow. And it just vanishes. It just like the whole upset vanishes. It's like somebody says, somebody says something bad to you that upsets you and stuff like that, and you just realize that you're not upset at all. Everything's fine. And you just got better understanding of this person all of a sudden because you stop pushing away. So I would just say, just kind of relax and let it flow in. It doesn't mean that you have to mentally accept everything that's happening to you. That's not what I mean. I mean this energy, the vibrations of this emotion. Just let it flow in. That's it.
Yeah, wonderful advice, Mike. And it reminds me actually of two books that I've read, The Four Agreements and The Fifth Agreement, which are basically it also comes down to relax, right? And not like accepting, but don't let it influence you, right?
No. In here, the idea is that it's a part of you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
If you keep rejecting parts of you, then you are left with a very little part of you, and I call it self-mutilation.
Yeah.
So you stop self-mutilating. It's you accept it, and it helps. It works.
Yeah. So, Michael, if people want to know more about you, get in touch with you, or maybe even read or buy your book, how can they do that?
Well, I put it at zero. The price is zero for ebook on Amazon. Michael Priv on Amazon. There are also other books that I have in there that are not zero, but this one is zero in ebook form. You're welcome. Anybody is welcome to read it. Also, I have a website which is michaelpriv.com, and it's also free in there as well.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and then also in there I have email, and that's how I get many of my reaches from people who want to help with various problems or forces through my website or by email or Facebook. But website is a valid way to...
Wonderful, Michael. Well, I want to thank you for your time, your explanation, and you're clearly passionate about it. And let's definitely keep in touch.
Yes. Okay, Erwin. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
I hope you liked this episode. Make sure to check out the other episodes, because each one is filled with interesting and inspiring stories and energy. Are you following your passion as well and make a good living out of it? Contact me and you could be my next guest. Would you like to follow your passion but are not there yet? Check out my website millionairelifestrategy.com and book an appointment to discover what I could do for you. Don't forget to share the podcast with your friends so that they get inspired as well.